Good afternoon. I hope you're having a great day wherever you are. And thank you for joining us here in our Skincare Entrepreneur Mastermind group, or maybe on YouTube afterwards. We might put this one on our YouTube channel as well for you to watch afterwards. So just in case you don't know, my name is Lorraine Dahlmeyer and I run Formula Botanica. We are the online organic cosmetic formulation school. We have over 12,000 students now in 176 countries, which is awesome. And you can probably see some of their products behind me. Many of our students go on to launch their own brands, and I actually have a couple here as well. So today we're doing a very special live stream for you here in the group on how to build a beauty brand website that converts. Now, obviously, with COVID, most businesses have gone completely online. And what that means is that a lot of businesses are now looking at their websites and wanting to make sure that they have the absolute top best place in the world for their clients to come or their customers to come and see their products. And we want to run this session for you today so that you can get some really, really good advice on how to set up your beauty brand website as well, because we are in a group filled with 42,000 plus skincare entrepreneurs around the world. So the first thing I want you to do for me is come and leave me a comment in the chat and tell me where you are in the world. I'm losing my voice because I have a cold. My darling children went back to school after lockdown and immediately came home with all their germs. So that was really lovely. So leave me a comment in the chat and tell me where you are in the world, because I always love seeing all of the comments. And I can see someone already has joined us from the USA. So hello, good afternoon. So I have a very special guest with me. I have my cousin Adam. I've never actually done a live stream before with one of my family members, which is really cool. So Adam and I have obviously known each other our entire lives. So there may be a little bit of banter during the session. I can't promise that we'll keep it strictly professional. Some of my earliest family memories are with Adam. I remember one particularly at your grandparents' 40th wedding anniversary, getting very angry with someone who stole our balloons.
Yeah, I believe I chased you for several hours. I think it was the funnest, most enjoyable game I've ever played at that time. Just chasing my cousin Lorraine around and around. It was awesome.
Not much has changed, to be fair. But now, obviously, we both work in tech and we do things a little bit differently. So with that said, Adam, can you introduce yourself to everyone watching?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Lorraine, for having me here today. Hi, everybody. My name is Adam Cox, and this is called Code Websites. Code Websites is a web design agency, and we help businesses promote their brands online and generate leads. So we work with e-commerce brands and other brands to do this. It's a full-service design agency, a big focus on web design and development. We help businesses develop their brands, put together brand guidelines, design logos, and then design the front end of their website, create content for their website, put together content strategy for their site as well, figure out what pages they need for their site and so on, how to best position their content, and then also how to market their business online. So what various different marketing channels they're going to need to use to generate leads, how to get in front of their target audience, and promote their products and services. So yeah, really big focus for us is helping businesses actually get a return on their investment into their digital marketing. Yeah, very passionate about it. Very excited to be here today to talk about it. It's so nice to be hanging out with my cousin as well. So yeah, thanks so much, Lorraine, for having me here today.
No, it's awesome. It's lovely to have you here. And I will say, if you have any questions about building a website for your beauty brand, post them up in the chat. I've got some questions for Adam that I'm going to get to in a minute. But if you have any questions, then please do put them up. And I think it's also worth mentioning that you actually built my first business website, didn't you?
I did indeed. Yes, back in the days of Herb and Hedgerow. Yeah, that was a lot of fun, and we should probably come back and talk about that because it's a great example actually of a website where you were in a different stage of your entrepreneurship journey, and what you were trying to achieve. You were trying to do a lot of the things yourself in terms of the website design, and so a lot of business owners are in a similar position when they're starting out, trying to do a lot of the web design side of things themselves, and figure out. There's a lot of questions you have along that journey, along that process of how do you build it yourself? How do you do it? What help would you actually need? So yeah, I remember it very well. It was a fun process, and you're somebody who knows. You're a very creative person, and you kind of know where you want to be. So as a client, in a way, you were wonderful because you gave a lot of direction. You kind of knew a lot about what you needed and what you were looking for, and it was good to be able to help you out with the technical side of things and the development side of things to kind of get you where you need to be.
Yeah, it was awesome, actually. I learned a lot about WordPress from you. So there you have it. My first website, I hired Adam as well. There you go. So with that said, I'm going to ask you some questions. And if you do have a question and you're watching us, post it up in the chat as well. And we'd love to answer it. But first of all, let's get started. So my first question to you is, when you're first starting out, what are the things that you should think about before you start building a website? Let's go right back to the beginning. You have an idea, you have some formulations, you want to sell them online. What do you
It's such a good question. And typically I'll ask somebody when they come to me, I'll say, what are you looking for? And, people know that they need a website. It's generally something that most businesses need. And if you're selling products online, you know that you're going to need a website. But what I would say, first of all, is consider have a think about your business plan, make sure that's in place so you know where you want the business to go, because your website is going to kind of evolve along the same lines. It's going to have similar goals. Then also think about your marketing strategy, because we need to take into consideration things like, what is your product and service range? Who is your target market? Who is it that you're trying to sell to? So in order to position the content on your website correctly, that all needs to be in place. We also need to think about your branding. Branding is such an essential step that needs to be done before the website, ideally, if possible, because branding is going to inform all of your marketing. So whether it be digital marketing, like web design, whether it be social media and the content you put out on there, whether it be print, advertising, regardless, it's not just about your logo, it's about the color scheme, the fonts, the typography. It's also about the tone of the content, the written content that's on there, maybe video content that you're going to be using. So getting your marketing strategy in place, and then getting your branding in place, and like we'll help clients out with branding, but typically a marketing strategy can be, you might need to consult a marketing strategist or a business coach to get you helped, to get you started in those areas.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just one component, really, isn't it? The website. It's you really have to understand exactly where you're going with the business. So I love that you just said that. And actually, we've just had a question in, which I'm going to put up on the screen. So we can't actually see your name because we're live in a group. If we were on our page, we'd have your little name and photo on it. So all I'm seeing is Facebook users. So I do apologize if I don't know who you are, because I'm not on Facebook running this. But this person says, should you build your website and make it live before you launch? What do you think?
Well, that's going to be context dependent. If you put something out there, you're going to want to be able to start generating some traffic for it. So sometimes it's like an under construction page. Nowadays, I would say to people, just don't do an under construction page. There's absolutely no point in telling people that there is really nothing here yet and come back later, because they're not going to come back later. They're going to go somewhere else and they're going to forget about you. So I would say launch when you're ready to launch is always a good rule. Get prepared and make sure that your website deadline to launch is in line with when you want to launch the products and services. And give yourself plenty of time as well. Don't try and rush it. Don't try and squeeze it all into a few weeks. Really give yourself some space so that you can commit to a deadline. Everybody that's involved in your marketing launch, whether it be, because you might have other components, it might be the website, there might be an actual product launch, you might have some in-person launch that you want to do, some physical marketing. So yeah, I would wait until you're ready.
Yeah, that's really good advice. And I launched my website, obviously, before I had products on it. So I wanted to launch a skincare brand called Herb and Hedgerow. I've talked about this many times over. And Adam designed my website for me. And I was like, well, I don't have the products yet, but I'm going to get the website going because I want traffic. And I'm a prolific blogger. And this was all really the start of Formula Botanica, to be honest. So I started blogging instead and made that the core of my website. And what was interesting, and I realized this isn't for everyone, because not everyone wants to churn out really lengthy articles all the time like I did, but people start, excuse me, they started to visit the site and then they'd say, when are you launching your products? So I suppose that there are a few examples where you might be able to do that, but generally, yeah, you want to have something on there, because as Adam says, there's nothing worse than that little under construction picture.
Yeah. It's unfortunately, it's 90s now. You could do it just for nostalgia effect, but well, you've always been a blogger, and you've I think you needed a bit of an outlet for that, but it's also stood you in really good stead for the fact that we need that regular content. Google needs that regular content. So again, context dependent. The context for you is that you wanted to start generating, you wanted to build an audience. You wanted to build some brand presence. And in that respect, I think that's perfectly reasonable to start doing that before you have products to launch. You can start putting the word out there in terms of your brand. You can develop a following. But I would make sure you consider if you're offering value, and you're not just asking people to wait until the value gets delivered. If the value that you're offering is the products, then wait until you're ready to launch the products and be able to sell the products. If the value that you're offering is really informative content, and people are going to keep coming back because you're delivering really informative content, and down the line you'll be delivering a product range, then you've got two stages there, and it makes sense to launch prior to the products in that respect.
Yeah, really good advice. You make sure you're offering value. I hope everyone's taking notes. So I've got another question for you. And I always love asking this type of question because I think people can learn so much from it. So what are the biggest mistakes you've seen brands make when creating a website? And that doesn't have to be a beauty brand. I mean, you've obviously worked with lots of different sectors. So what are the sort of mistakes you've seen people make?
Well, I'll tell you what the most common mistake is. I'll give you two of them. I'll give you two examples. The most common mistake typically is hiring a cheap provider. The reality is that there are a lot of web design agencies out there. There's a lot of freelancers out there. But unfortunately, not all of them are good quality. And a lot of them are very cheap. And what I find is that most people that I work with have already worked with web developers, web designers, somebody in digital marketing previously, and they've had a bad experience. So I think that the lesson here that you want to try and avoid learning yourself is you get what you pay for, generally, okay, in most instances. So I would suggest investing in a good quality agency, designer, developer, provider, freelancer, whoever it is, but make sure they've got good references, good testimonials. And I think most importantly, there's somebody that you want to work with, because quite often you're starting to develop a long-term relationship with somebody, and you don't really want to switch the provider again and again and again. You might end up finding that you want to go with somebody, a bigger agency, provide a wider range of services, and it just makes sense. But if you start off with somebody who's good quality, then you can stick with them down the line, and they can help support you. The other big mistake is not defining a marketing budget. So if you get to the point where you've invested time, money, and effort into developing these beautiful products, you've got your product offering, you know what's going on. Maybe you've even got your branding on point. You're ready to launch, but you've not defined a budget to actually promote your products or services online. Then you're gonna really hamstring yourself, and you're gonna find that you're gonna have to do things really cheap. And there's really nothing worse. Nothing more painful than to see somebody who's got this incredible, line of products, and they want to promote them, but they want to basically do a really cheap website. And then what's going to happen is it's going to look cheap, so it's not really going to do their branding and their products the justice that they deserve. So again, it comes back to that initial business plan, marketing strategy, branding, what are my brand values? If this is a good quality product that I'm putting out there, then my marketing needs to be good quality as well. I need to make sure that in my business plan, I've got a budget, not just for all of the product development and everything else, but also, for the marketing and ongoing marketing as well. If you're going to be developing a following, if you're going to be competing in the online arena, then most likely at some point, you're going to want to start doing some search engine optimization, maybe some paid advertising and so on. So it's very hard to find that budget if you haven't defined it early on.
I love it. So don't go cheap and set yourself a budget. I think that we can all learn from that in every single part of running a business.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's very common to get to that point where you want to launch the website, but all the money for your business has been invested in other areas.
Love it. Okay, so then let's flip it over. What are the 3 things that every single great website needs?
Yeah, gosh. I mean, that's a tough question, but I would say every single great website needs to be built on an open source content management system. And maybe we can come back to this as a bit of a wider discussion, but you need to own your website. I think that's really, really important. You need a content strategy, okay? Putting together content based on how you want to see it or what you think people want to see, it is not necessarily going to get you the results that you want. If you want results, if you want people to find you, if you want to convert that traffic into sales, leads, inquiries, then the content needs to be strategized. It needs to be based on data and research, competitor analysis, keyword analysis. You need to understand why each page is there, what its purpose is, because that's what Google's doing. When Google's having a look at your website, it's going, what are these pages for? What am I reading? Why is this relevant to people? Why is it a value? So, if that's put together right, then you're onto a winner. And then I think good technical search engine optimization setup. Nowadays, it's such a complex thing, but if you launch a website with good fundamental SEO practices, it's going to really set you in good stead going forwards.
Okay, so
it's funny because I would say that the design, how it looks on the front end is almost secondary to that, because it's actually about getting things set up right. That's going to convert, making it look nice is absolutely essential, but that comes once you've got all those other things in place.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So we're in a community here with a lot of people who make beauty products. So I think maybe it's worthwhile us sort of double clicking on what you've just said. Sorry, that was very geeky. And just explaining a little bit more about what search engine optimization is, because I know a lot of people here do know that, but I think it's worthwhile us revisiting it because not everyone understands fully what it means. And a lot of people view it as a bit of a dark art. And that's often sold as well. It's like you must have 6 SEO consultants, but actually, what does it mean? And can you do any of it yourself?
Gosh, it is a complex subject. It's constantly evolving and changing. I would say you do need somebody on your team who knows what they're doing with SEO. Yes, you can do some of it yourself. The challenge is that good design practices are now considered part of search engine optimization. So what is it? Let's break it down. Search engine optimization is effectively the organic ranking factor that Google has in place. So when you're searching for a web on Google, you're going to put in some keywords. Nowadays, it's not just a word or a keyword, it's a key phrase. How do I find the best beauty products online? What are the best beauty products near me? And so Google is considering a whole key phrase. And you want your website to come up at the top of the list against your competitors, but ideally for the people that actually are looking for your particular product or brand. You kind of want to use it as a way to qualify your potential client base. So I would say it's very easy to generate traffic for your website, but it's a lot harder to generate the right type of traffic for your website. So part of it is all about keywords, and I think we're all fairly familiar with that aspect of search engine optimization because it's, for the last 20 years, we've been using keywords to search on Google. And again, it's about the organic ranking. So what that means is it's not paid. You're not paying for this. You can go in and do all of this stuff on your website to rank on Google completely for free. It's just labor intensive. So there's a fair amount that needs to be done on page in terms of the content. You're going to need things like specific service pages. Google wants to know what your website's about. So it's not good enough to just have a one-page website nowadays. Google won't know what it's about, especially if you're talking about different products and services on the same page. So Google wants to see product-specific or service-specific pages. They want to be able to see that there's images on there. There's also the technical SEO aspect, which is in the back end of the website, where you're going to start setting things like header tags, meta tags, description tags, image alt tags. This is effectively where you consolidate your focus for those particular pages on the website. So you make sure that that page that's going to be about that particular service or product also has a header that talks about, that has the same key phrases in. And also the images are related to that particular product and service. So Google's going to have a look through your website. It's going to go, okay, does this all line up? Does this match up? Does this make sense? Okay, am I going to put this person's website above somebody else's? And they're going to do that based on how many boxes effectively you've ticked on the SEO checklist, which grows and changes on a regular basis. And nowadays, it's also having a look at things like the responsiveness of on your website. So does it work well on desktop, mobile, tablet, different screen orientations? Does it adjust appropriately? It's going to have a look at the speed that your pages and your content's being delivered. And in May, actually, the algorithm's being updated. So it's going to take into account things like, do you have a good security on your website, like an SSL certificate? Have you got the padlock symbol up by the browser address, which is really important for e-commerce websites? So that's becoming a ranking factor for search engine optimization. Is your content being delivered in under 3 seconds? Is the homepage content at the top being delivered first ahead of other page content? So search engine optimization really is hugely combined now with website design practices and user experience, because Google knows that good user experience, the experience that your users are having when they access your website, has to be an important ranking factor. And they want websites that have good user experience to be up there in the rankings. So I'd say, yes, you can do some of this stuff yourself, but I would say just don't waste your time trying to become an expert in search engine optimization. Hire somebody who is good, get them on your team, and get them helping you out with it, and make sure it's being considered from the front end design, everything that's being placed on there, the images and what you're seeing, to how it's being served up on your different devices, to also how it's then what keywords you're using and how it's being found in the search rankings.
Yeah, absolutely. Perfect. I mean, we obviously do a lot of organic content. So we do a lot with, well, I wouldn't say search engine optimization as such, but regularly in the Formula Botanica team, we're having conversations about this particular search term doesn't seem to actually have that much content for it in Google. Let's go write some stuff for it. We do work with an SEO consultant now, and then we'll go, how could we best phrase this? And sometimes he comes to us, like he came to us a while ago and said, you need to write an article about coconut oil versus olive oil. Use those exact words. So we did. And it was a brilliant article. Well, I'm blowing my own trumpet here. I wrote it myself. It was a great article. It did really, really well. And, it shot to the top of that particular search term. So it is very, very useful in that respect. Let me just pull this one up. I am monitoring all the questions. So by the way, if you have asked a question I haven't got to you yet,
no, sure.
I've got a few others up my sleeve. But this person says, hi, Adam, do you suggest using services such as Ubersuggest for searching out best keyword suggestions for blog writing? I don't know Ubersuggest. Do you?
Yeah, I have. I've used it a little bit. Now, I'm not the SEO guy within the business. I'll just put that out there right now. So, I know enough to answer some of your questions. But I've used Ubersuggest once or twice. I would say it's not a bad tool. There are some really good ones out there. Anything by like Neil Patel. If you Google Neil Patel, he's got some great tools, really free tools. SEO Moz, SEO MOZ. They've got some great tools. So there are some really good tools out there. And yes, absolutely, it's definitely worth using them. I think Ubersuggest is a pretty good one in terms of keyword suggesting. So Lorraine, you've not used this, but yeah, I believe it's a tool that allows you to figure out what would be a good title based on an SEO key search term for your blog. And so sometimes it's a good idea to get that title for your blog written in a way that it's also going to consider what people are searching for. So instead of writing, here's 5 things, so you might write something like 5 ways to create your beauty skincare product, or 5 ingredients that you should use, or something like that. Would be much better than what ingredients should you use, for example, because it's based on the psychology behind what people are actually searching for. So tools like this can be very helpful.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, I'll go and check that out, and I'm sure everyone else will as well. Right. So I've got a couple more questions for you, actually. So I think I know what you're going to say to this, but I'm going to ask you anyway. If a beauty brand founder is just starting out, do you recommend that they try and build their own website along everything else? And the reason I'm saying this is because I've obviously worked with thousands and thousands of indie beauty entrepreneurs. And if there's one thing I've seen is that they all try and do everything themselves. And there's nothing wrong with that, because I have walked in your shoes as well. If you're listening to me, that is me. I have been there too. But is it a good thing to try and do yourself on top of manufacturing your products, getting your branding right, raising funding, making sure you're working with retailers, thinking about your distribution channels, setting up your digital marketing processes, and ultimately hustling and selling?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. No, not at all. I think it's not just in the beauty industry. I think everybody, every entrepreneur, every business owner falls into this. I've done it. I'm still doing it. I'm still expanding my team members to stop me from trying to do everything. I don't know if it's not just a cost saving measure. I think it's just as an entrepreneur, you just can't help yourself, can you? Right? Because nobody does anything as good as you do. So why wouldn't we do our own website at the same time? But I think the disconnect here is in really understanding how complex it is and how work goes into it. Most typical thing I hear from a client when we get towards like the launch stage is, I didn't realize how much work there was involved in this. So not if you can help it would be my answer to you. Look, we're not all in a position where we've got a bottomless pit of resources to lean on in terms of finances to for marketing and so on. But yeah, if you can help it, get an agency on board to help you through this. It's going to save you so much time and effort. It's also going to mean that you don't necessarily have to redo that website in the next 12 months or so, because it's not doing what you need it to do. It's not performing. It's not generating the traffic you need it to generate. It's not converting, and you will have to start again. Because it will just be more cost effective than what you already have. You've got to get all of the SEO technical stuff in place first. You've got to get the right design. At the end of the day, you need a website that's going to convert. There's no point turning on the taps of traffic through all of your social posting that you're doing, the blog posting that you're doing to promote this beautiful brand if you don't have a website that's going to convert that. And really, I mean, we have a whole team working on different aspects of the website. So, from branding, you're going to need a lead creative who understands the branding process and understands how to get your brand story out of you. That's really hard for business owners to look at themselves introspectively in that respect. So really helpful to have somebody else work with you on that. And then once you've got that put together and you've got a set of brand guidelines, you can go to every other team member you work with or anybody you outsource to, go, here's my brand guidelines. That's how you need to do everything. And it's great because once we have that, it's like, oh, okay, we know what the color scheme is and so on. You've got front-end designers who are going to work on what it looks like. You've got the SEO team that are going to help the designers and the developers as they're going through the different stages. You're going to need your back-end developers to work on developing the site and security and so on. You're going to need your SEO guys. You might need a copywriter as well to help you create the content, just to save you the time, but also make sure that your brand guideline, messaging is right across the board. And I would say you don't really want to be hiring that team yourself, putting it together and managing it. That is another thing that, you kind of get, a lot of business owners get into that process and they don't realize, okay, well, we're actually going to need we're going to need a copywriter. I don't think we're going to need a copywriter, but now we do. We're going to bring that copywriter in. And then you've got to manage the communication between the copywriter and the web design team and the SEO person. And now you've become a project manager when actually you're trying to run a business, and promote your products and work on sales and marketing. So not if you can help it, ideally.
Fair enough. I think everyone understood that is a lot of work. And, I've been there myself. In the beginning, I didn't know how to work with WordPress, and obviously worked with you, got quite comfortable with WordPress. Then, we've obviously changed the Formula Botanica site a number of times over the years. In fact, last year we completely revamped it again. And it's a big undertaking. I mean, there were 10 people involved with that revamp. Obviously, we had 350 pages at that point as well. So it was quite painful. But yeah, you need some help with that. So I think that's a really, really good piece of advice.
And actually, with Herb and Hedgerow, I think that's a great example of going, well, how do we do this on a shoestring? How does any business owner do? Every new business owner, you start out typically on a shoestring budget, so it's not necessarily affordable to go out and go, hey, agency, can you do all of this cool stuff for us? So you get yourself a WordPress site, you get yourself a WordPress theme, and then you're going to try and adjust it to suit your content and your branding. And actually, at that point, you don't really know how much development support you're going to need, And we needed to do a fair amount of development work, and there was a lot of back and forth, wasn't there, between us in terms of, okay, this is the theme, this is what it can do, and then you would say, okay, but I want it to do all of this cool stuff. I'm like, okay, well, it can't do all of that stuff. We have to develop all of that stuff. Right? We can do this and we can do that, but you have to make a lot of compromises when you're doing things using templates. But when you're doing things bespoke from scratch, you can there do whatever you want and whatever you need to do.
Yeah, that's why I have always insisted on making sure that our website is still based on a template. I had a couple of quotes a few years ago from web design agencies, and I kept going, I want it to be on this template. Can you please keep it on this template? And I had one company come to me and go, well, we don't do templates. We build it from scratch, and that'd be $50,000. Thank you. And I just sort of sat there and went, what now? Are you kidding me? So yeah. Try and template it. And that we've got some questions along those lines, actually. I've just got one more that I want to ask you, and then I'm going to start picking out a couple of questions from the chat.
Sure.
Excellent ones in there, because you touched in it already earlier. You were talking about using open source platform. Make sure you own your own website. There are lots of people here in the groups who use Shopify, and a few of those other sort of platforms that are already set up. So can you walk us through what sort of platforms exist and what you think people should be doing?
Okay, yeah. So I mean, there's a bunch, and you've probably heard of the usual: Shopify, Wix, Squarespace, Joomla, Drupal, Magento, Webflow. Zorb is one I've been introduced to recently, and of course WordPress. So the bottom line for me comes back to, you need to own your own website. It's really, really important you do that. If you are on Shopify, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with any of those platforms, because I think they all have their place. And the cool thing about a closed source platform, and when I say closed source and open source, what I'm talking about is the fact that Shopify comes with it's like you're renting with Shopify, right? If you rent your own apartment, your own house, and so on, it comes kind of as is. You're limited with so many design features. Your landlord might be a little bit uncomfortable with you knocking through a wall, or hanging up changing the painting a different color or something like that. Whereas if you own the house, you can do what you want. You can purchase a house that is right for you, and then as your family grows and expands, you can build an annex or an extension or whatever else. With a closed source platform, which is like Shopify, you're limited to the templates that they provide, and the support they provide, and the system the way it is. There isn't a lot of flexibility, which can suit a lot of business owners at the stage that they're at. A system like WordPress is open source, which means you can take that website, you can give it to a developer, and you can do whatever you want with it. You can extend it, you can fix it, you can make it fast, you can do whatever you like with it, but you also own it completely. If Shopify, the business, goes under tomorrow and nobody can access any Shopify websites, your website's gone, because you don't own it. You can also, if you don't like it anymore, you can't go to a WordPress developer and go, can you just move my Shopify website onto WordPress? It's the same thing as building a brand new website on WordPress. But if you've got a WordPress website, you can move it to another developer. You own it. You literally own the files. And if WordPress as the organization disappears tomorrow, it doesn't matter, because it's community driven, which means there are thousands, millions of developers out there right now working on it and building it. So it's not just going to disappear on you. And that's really important, because if 2-3 years down the line you've been working with somebody and you're not happy with them anymore and you want to move somewhere else, you need to be able to take your website with you. So yeah, that would be that would be my answer to that.
No, that's an absolutely fair point. And for instance, at Formula Botanica, our e-learning platform is on Moodle, which is also open source. And I chose that because I wanted to own it myself. And I watch so many people out there teach online courses on third-party platforms like Thinkific and Teachable and places like that, Kajabi, and they're great. But exactly as Adam said, if they go under, then your website, your e-learning platform, in my particular case, is gone. And for me, it's very, very important to be able to own that. So I agree with you in that respect. I understand it's very easy to get started on something like Shopify, but obviously, yeah, there's that added potential drawback. Sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say there are pros and cons. Absolutely, it does depend on your business and where you're at and what your needs are. And I'll sometimes say to people, it might be more cost effective for you to use something like Shopify for your needs.
Mm.
Um, so WordPress, it may be more expensive, for example, depending on your requirements. But ultimately, as your business grows and expands, you're going to need that flexibility. But it does require maintenance. The nice thing about renting a place, renting a house, is you don't have to worry about the maintenance, and it's the same thing with Shopify. They're going to take care of that. With WordPress, you'll need
Yeah.
to maintain it. There will be a cost to doing so, but again, it's pros and cons. Ultimately, I think knowing that you own your own website and you can switch to a different provider if you need to, is going to be more cost effective in the long run.
Yeah. And I will say, and we're not going to go into too much detail on that here, but if you search in the group, you'll be able to find some threads on it. I have seen quite a few beauty brands have their Shopify shops shut over the years because of the fact that they have certain terms and conditions about certain ingredients that they don't like you using, because they feel that you're then making pharmaceutical claims. There have been some threads in the group. Please do just search Shopify and you'll probably find them. So I think there is an added risk there as well. And I have seen some very, very upset skincare entrepreneurs come past over the years sort of going, what did Shopify do to my shop? So just be aware of that as well. But if anyone has that experience, by all means, post up in the chat as well, because we'd love to hear from you. Right, let's see. I've got a couple of questions here. This one's great. I didn't start at the beginning, but I think that means the beginning of the live stream. I was told there are good templates that can aid your design for your own website. Is that true?
Yeah, I mean, there's templates that you can use on a platform like Shopify, for example. It's pretty much your only option is to go with a template design and then adjust it. And you can get themes for WordPress as well. And like Lorraine was saying, she'll only work with a sort of a pre-designed theme. So there's pros and cons. What we tend to do, if a client's looking for something bespoke, we'll still work with a theme, with a template, and then we'll basically use a lot of the elements and the animations and so on, but we'll adjust the color scheme and the content and so on. Where our expertise tends to come into place is knowing exactly where to place the content, how to place it, what kind of calls to action to put in place, and what the workflow is of each page and so on. But I think, yes, you can certainly get yourself a template that's going to already have a lot of the things that you might need, that is set up specifically for a beauty brand website, or particularly for your type of business. There's lots of templates out that kind of have the baseline structure and elements that would be helpful for you. And it's definitely a good place to start wherever stage you're at, really.
Yeah, and there's some really powerful themes out there as well that can do literally everything and anything. I mean, I know Divi is a very, very popular one on WordPress, and I've worked with it myself, and it is incredibly simple. So yeah, it's not like you're completely limited to only one design either. You can go in any different direction as long as your theme is fairly flexible, which is awesome.
Yeah, I mean, and there's going to be a learning curve with whatever system you use. And I think that's going to come down to a personal preference as to whether or not you're really interested in being on that journey. I've got some clients who just don't want to touch the back end of the website. They don't want to go in and make changes and updates. They don't really want to learn how to use it. So it doesn't really matter whether or not they're on one platform or another. And there's people like yourself, Lorraine, who you'll get stuck in because it's you like that sort of thing. You're very technical. And you can pick it up, you know what I mean? So you probably have more control over what's going on and more understanding of the different plugins that you're using and how it all works.
You're the second person in a week to tell me on a live stream that I'm a geek.
Well, you're in good company.
Let's see. This one came in from Suzanne, I think. She says, Adam, what about ready-made template services such as Wix or GoDaddy for starting out a website? Is any website started better than none at all?
Well, I would say no, because I would say a bad website is worse than no website. If you've got, think about it. Do you want to make a good impression, a bad impression, or no impression? I had somebody come to me the other day and they said, Adam, I've just done a Wix website. Now I want to do search engine optimization. And I said to them, okay, you need a new website, because you've got no content on there, you don't have a sitemap. We can't optimize that website to rank on Google because it's been badly designed. So you can absolutely use Wix, and you can absolutely use GoDaddy for starting out. It can be more cost effective initially, but without the expertise of a web design agency or a web designer, it's going to be very difficult for you to design something that's going to rank appropriately on Google. It's going to be very difficult for it to convert the traffic that's coming in. If you're just looking to promote your brand and products and services and put something up there, then using a template is not a bad idea. But if it's done wrong, then you could just be giving your brand a negative association rather than a positive one.
Yeah. Yeah. And whatever you do, do not have one that has the banner at the top that says powered by Wix. I was even sent one of those yesterday, and I just sat there face palming myself going, can't you take that thing off your website? It looks terrible.
Well, it does actually. It doesn't give the best impression, to be honest. I mean, effectively, what it's saying is, we've done a bit of a cheap website, and when you do get to the stage where you want some support with it, the advice someone like myself is probably going to give you is, let's start from scratch. Let's build you a decent WordPress website. So we can take some of the content, we can take your branding and so on, but if you want it done right and properly, they wouldn't be platforms I would recommend.
Yep. Okay. Right. I've got another couple of questions here. And if you do have any questions for Adam, we're going to be here for a little bit longer. So do post them up in the chat because we'd love to hear from you. This one, I think, is from Alexia. I just checked on Facebook. I am in the process, I'm going to have to read this from the side, of changing the website designer as it's not delivering. The website isn't generating traffic. What should I look for with the new agency that might help me to understand if they're the right guys this time? From a technical part only, but also the communication and effectiveness component. Thank you.
My personal advice on this is work with somebody who you trust. I think really it comes down to, people buy from people, and spend a bit of time with them, get to know them, and really see whether or not you have a good vibe about it. Definitely look at some examples of work that they've done. Definitely have a look at some of the testimonials. But I honestly think that the best way to proceed with business-to-business services, when you're hiring somebody to help you expand your business, grow your business, market your business, it's about the connection you have with that person and whether or not you trust them. Spend a bit of time with them. If it's a hell, this is just a personal rule in my life, it's a hell yes, go for it. If it's not, then it's a hell no, basically. It's very difficult. This is a hard question to answer. There's a lot of us out there, a lot of web designers out there, really is. And you don't want to be spending the rest of your life interviewing all of them. Don't go on price comparison alone. Don't get 5 proposals from 5 different vendors and then go for the cheapest one. Just don't do it. Go for somebody who's providing value, and who's actually thinking about, what are the goals with your website? What are you trying to achieve? How are we going to help you develop return on investment? How are we going to help you promote your brand? Find someone who's investing in you as a person, in your brand, in your business, and taking an interest. Avoid churn factories, web design agencies who are just say yes to all of your questions, give you a really cheap price, and try and move you forwards. I think those would be red flags for me.
Yeah, I completely agree. And that's always what I've done as well. You've got to work with someone you trust. And I remember, I went out a few years ago to tender, and I just had all sorts of crazy proposals in. And I just sort of sat there and went, no, I'm not working with you or you or you or you. No, you have to have a feeling about it. But also, you can always set up the project, I suppose, in terms of, certain milestones as well. And if part of it involves maybe working on your brand first, then maybe that's the first milestone. And if you don't feel it with that person or that agency at that time, then, you part ways and you're not committed to a massive project either. So there are different ways of approaching it.
Yeah, one of the challenges, when you're starting your business, you want your website done, is putting a brief together of what your requirements are. So what I would say in that respect is just think about your goals for the website, what you're trying to achieve, and then take some advice from whoever it is that's pitching you. But make sure that they really do give you detail on the scope of work in their proposal. because the more detail they give you, it shows that they've really considered what needs to be included on your website. And it's also a document for both of you to reference when they launch the website or down the line to say, okay, well, we agreed that all of this was going to be included. If it's a very general overview, then I would say that you're possibly going to have some problems with that particular provider.
Yep, makes perfect sense. If you're completely clear about what you want, then people can work with that a lot easier as well.
Yeah, exactly. So you went to a builder and said, yeah, I want a 5-bedroom house. And they went, sure, absolutely. This is how much it costs. We can start next week. You'd be like, oh, that's wonderful. And then they're going to build you this tiny little 5-bedroom dollhouse and be like, that's not what I was looking for. And they're going to show you a piece of paper that has your signature on it that says, well, that's what you agreed to. So, they want to, if they're going to invest some time to consult on exactly what each room should look like and then give you advice as to what you're going to need in order to reach your goals, then that's a good sign.
Yeah. Okay. Got another question here from someone. They say, I've just purchased a domain name from GoDaddy, but haven't developed it yet. Can I just take that domain name from them and give it to someone else to develop? How does it work exactly?
Yeah, it's a really good question. There's general confusion over the difference between domain name, hosting, website, email. So domain name, just to clarify, it's just the web address. All it is the web address. So formulabotanica.co.uk, for example, or botanica.com, sorry.
.com?
Yeah, .com. Exactly. That is the web address for your website, Lorraine. Now, all it is the address. So it doesn't actually matter whether or not and you're just leasing it. You're not purchasing it. You don't really own it. You're just leasing it from GoDaddy on an annual basis. GoDaddy is perfectly fine from a domain registrar point of view. Yes, absolutely. You can then tell your web developer, hey, this is where that domain name is registered. So what you're also going to need is you're going to need hosting. Because a website effectively, unless you're using something like Shopify with a closed source system, they'll provide a hosting platform for it as well. But with an open source platform like WordPress, you're going to need hosting. And all it is, it's a set of files. Just like you would have a set of files on your computer, Word documents and so on, your website is constructed within a set of files. And it just needs to be somewhere. So that you're going to need a hosting account. Now, GoDaddy provides domains. It also provides hosting. You can get your hosting from another provider. You can get your domain from another provider. So you effectively just need to point the domain name, the address at wherever that hosting is. I would say work with a developer, web designer that can manage that for you so that you've kind of just got one point of contact for this stuff. It can get really confusing for you if you've got, right, my domain name's with GoDaddy, my hosting's with SiteGround, and my web developer is this person, and my emails with these people, and so on. You can try and kind of condense that down and get a web developer who's going to go, sure, let us help you with the domain, let us sort out your hosting for you. We'll do it all in one place. It's going to make it really simple. So yes, you can absolutely get your web developer to work with your GoDaddy domain. But just another point on that as well. Make sure that you have full admin access to your domain and to your hosting account. Again, you should own your website. You should have complete admin access to your hosting account, to your domain, to your Google Analytics, to whatever it is. And your web developer should insist that you are the admin on these accounts as well. Because otherwise they could potentially use that as leverage if you wanted to move provider. And I wouldn't say that's really appropriate.
No, fair enough. And you will scale over the years as well as your business grows. I mean, in the beginning, I had my hosting with a tiny sort of reselling agency where I paid, I think, about £20, £30 a year was how much I paid for my hosting. I can tell you that's not what I pay anymore.
No, I'm sure it isn't.
Thousands, because things have scaled over the years. First of all, our website's much, much bigger, but also we needed far more infrastructure, security, speed. We now have our own dedicated server. There is actually a server sat in a building that hosts Formula Botanica, and no one else, like literally no one else is on that server. Yeah. But to get that, I've had to take many, many steps up over the years, and you will too as your business grows. So yeah. Okay, I think I've gone through most of the questions. If you have any other questions for Adam, then please do pop them up. I've got one final one for you actually before we wrap things up. And I want to come back to, I know we've talked a lot about SEO and about content strategy and about how you market things and about how you build the infrastructure and the hosting and everything around that. But I'd really like us to just tackle pages for a minute, because I think, yes, there are certain pages you need to launch with. And I was wondering if you could give us a brief overview of the types of pages that you would expect a good website for a beauty brand to have.
Absolutely. So I think you're going to need a bare minimum of your home page, about page, a blog, contact page, and then, of course, if it's an e-commerce site, you're selling products, you need your shop page and your product page. So those are kind of your bare minimum. It's really important if you want a website that converts and is going to be found on Google, that you have a service or product specific page or set of pages. And again, your web designer, if they have an SEO in-house, or your SEO person can help you decide which pages you're going to need. And I would again suggest that's based on doing competitor analysis, keyword analysis, and figuring out what it is people are searching for. But having a specific, if you're selling a service or a product, having a specific page about that and just that means that Google can rank you appropriately for that content. It will know better what your website's about. The homepage is quite generic. It's going to talk about your recent offers, your different products, and so on. So it's going to have multiple different content centers, but having specific pages about specific things is going to be really important. And then, of course, you've got the about page. And it's really, really important that you humanize your brand with your digital marketing. It's so important because, again, I mentioned people buy from people. I think, it's your opportunity to stand out from the crowd. It's not just about your logo and what it looks like. It's not just about your products, but it's actually about why you started the business, who you are. People really buy into that massively. And it's such a missed opportunity with so many businesses, because it's the scariest part about business, putting yourself out there, being the face of the brand. But that's what people connect with, and people buy through their emotions, through connecting with brands. So they want to know who you are. They want to know why you've started this business. And sometimes, I mean, we helped a brand recently figure this out. They'd been to various different agencies. And we did a branding session with them, a workshop where we went right back to where the owner, she had started this tech startup, and she'd been working with her dad on all of his inventions. And it turned out that what she thought the business was about it wasn't about that at all. It turned out it was about her helping people and wanting to, use her dad's inventions to help other people. And once we put that into words for her, it kind of clicked in place. And that then informed every other aspect of her branding and her tagline and aspects of the content that we put on the website. And that's what people are going to connect with. So really important to have a good about page that's going to, particularly if you're a business owner and you've started your own beauty product brand, really put yourself out, get some good quality photography, and put some content out that explains who you are and why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah, great advice. I cannot even begin to tell you how many beauty brand websites I go to that A, don't have a photo of the founder on there, but B, even if they do have a photo, they don't tell me their name. Drives me absolutely up the wall, because often I need to know their name in order to do some social media promotions. And I can't just go, Madam X, who runs this website. I need to actually know who's behind it. So yeah, you have to become visible as part of your brand like that.
And I mean, you do a lot of this yourself, right, Lorraine? And you are the face of your brand. You put yourself out there, and I'm sure that everybody who's watching today, everybody in your group, they very much connect with you, with your personality and who you are. And you're, if you were to take you out of Formula Botanica, I mean, not just working behind the scenes, but being the face of, I imagine that would make a huge difference to how people connect with your brand. So great case in point, really, that speaks to that.
Thank you. Okay, we've got one more question, which I'm going to sneak in here at the end, which is a good one because it's about analytics. I'd like to know something about how to use Google Analytics. In particular, is this something very complex or time consuming? Do you suggest I delegate it to someone else?
Yeah, it depends on what you want to use the analytics for. I mean, again, you can learn anything in respect to websites. Everything, anybody can learn anything nowadays because of the internet, because of YouTube. It's wonderful. So if you wanted to, you can learn how to use analytics, and I definitely recommend you get a basic understanding of it, because it's a wonderful thing to be able to log into your Google Analytics account and know how to just go and look at how many visitors you've had over the past week or month or day or so. And none of that is particularly complex. But I would definitely recommend, it's going to save you a lot of time and effort if you have an SEO person on board. And SEO in that respect doesn't have to be particularly expensive. Having somebody configure and set up your Google Analytics account, it's not a big job, but for somebody who knows what they're doing, it's like they say that you don't pay the plumber to bang on the pipes, you pay him to know where to bang, right? So, that's the same thing. So yeah, I would definitely recommend get a good SEO person on your team, get them to just configure and set up your Google Analytics account. You also need to link it to something else called Google Search Console. You need to make sure that your website sitemap is submitted there so that Google knows which pages on your site to crawl and list. So there could be a lot of, the technical bits that you're missing. And if you don't get that set up right, 12 months down the line, you might come and speak to somebody like myself, and I'll just have a quick look and go, okay, I can see that Search Console's not linked. You haven't got your sitemap on there. You've possibly been missing out on a whole bunch of traffic. So yeah, I would definitely recommend getting somebody on your team for that.
Yeah. And yeah, as Adam said, just get started and look at the basics yourself, because it's so much fun. And I know I'm being a real geek saying this, but I get a real kick out of going on to Google Analytics, and particularly after I've sent out a newsletter. It's one of my favorite things to do. I know it's slightly weird, but I send out a newsletter. We have, 100,000 plus people on our mailing list. And then I know I'm directing people to the website, and then I just sit there and watch. And sometimes I'll get my kids and I'll be like, look, there's 20 people in India on our website. And look, there's all these people here in Australia. And it's really amazing to see how that traffic grows over the years as well. So when I first started with Formula Botanica, we'd get 1,000 people a month on the website. Now we get 500,000 page views a month. So at any given point, you can go on and in real time see who's sat on your website. And it's fascinating. So you don't have to get too geeky with it, but it's a really useful thing to know, because it gives you an idea of how you're doing.
Yeah, and it does come down to the person. Some people, it depends on what type of business you are. You don't have to be an expert in Google Analytics to run your business or to do good SEO. You can hire somebody and they can run the whole lot for you. But if you're interested in it, you want to learn about it, absolutely, that's realistic. To really be an expert in it, that's more of a full-time job. But to be able to log in and have an overview, you can totally do that.
Absolutely. So with that said, I think it's time for us to wrap this up, because we've had some awesome questions and we've had you here for an hour already. So I really appreciate you coming on, Adam, and giving us your time. And I'm also quite amazed that we haven't slipped in a single Monkey Island reference anywhere.
I know. How did that happen? Seriously. So basically, I still want to be a mighty pirate when I grow up.
Nice.
Best game ever. But yeah, you lost me now. We can talk about Monkey Island for another hour now. But thank you so much for having me on. It's been fantastic. It's been really nice to have a chat with you. Thank you to everyone who's posted questions. It's an absolute pleasure to answer them. And yeah, it's nice to be here. So thank you.
Tell everyone watching where they can find you. And I believe you've got some kind of freebie as well, actually, that you offer people.
Yeah, absolutely. So speed optimization has become a really important thing right now with websites. So for search engine optimization, making sure that your website's being found, it's really important that your website loads fast. So we work primarily with WordPress websites. In May, Google is updating its algorithm to take into account a lot of the different speed, page loading speed factors. So what I can do is I can give you a free report. All you've got to do is just ping me an email, adam@code-websites.com. And you can go to the website, which is www.code-websites.com. You can send me an email there. And I will send you a free report that tells you exactly how fast your website loads. Just ping me the URL for your website. And you can check that out. Now, you really want your website to be loading in less than 3 seconds. And we can drill down into some of the specifics on that to tell you exactly what you need and what you need to do. And we can optimize your website for speed as well. So we can actually solve any issues that you have. So yeah, that's something we're working on at the moment. But feel free to get in touch if you have any questions that I haven't answered today, any type of inquiry, please do reach out.
Thank you. Have I spelled your email address correctly?
Yes, that's it. That's absolutely correct. So yeah, you can reach me there.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Kaz. It's been awesome to see you. And thank you for answering all my questions and all the questions from the audience. And we'll probably put this up on YouTube afterwards as well. So then everyone can enjoy it for posterity. So thank you very much for your time. Lovely to see you. And yeah, thank you everyone for watching. See you soon.
Thank you. Thank you. Take care. Bye.